Rich people don't work for money. They work for meaning. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? Because for most of us, money is the reason we wake up early, the reason we stay late, the reason we stress, save, and struggle. But what if that belief itself is the reason we never truly have enough? Welcome to Audiobook Gold, where consciousness meets wisdom, and every story opens a new door inside you. Today, we'll talk about something that quietly decides how much wealth, happiness, and success you allow yourself to have, even before you touch a single dollar. It's not a skill, not luck, not background. It's your beliefs, your limiting beliefs. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities while others keep running into invisible walls? They study the same books. They work just as hard, but their results never quite match their efforts. That's because there's a silent program running in the background of their mind, one that whispers, "You're not ready. You're not worthy. You don't deserve more." And without realizing it, they start living according to that whisper. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not the lack of money that keeps most people poor. It's the belief that they don't deserve more money, more freedom, more success. We call it an invisible wall, built not from bricks, but from fear, guilt, and generations of old stories we never questioned. So before we talk about strategy or success habits, let's pause. Let's look inward at that wall you might have carried your whole life. Because if you've ever felt like no matter what you do, you can't break through, maybe the problem isn't your effort. Maybe it's your belief. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll go deeper into where these beliefs come from and how they silently shape everything you think you deserve. Because you can't rebuild your life until you know what's been building your limits. When we talk about limiting beliefs, it's easy to think they came from some big dramatic moment, a failure, a rejection, a heartbreak. But the truth is, most of them were planted quietly, long before we even had the words to describe them. They began when we were children, sitting at the dinner table listening to adults talk about money, work, or dreams. We didn't understand the numbers, but we understood the tone, the size, the worry, the tension that filled the room whenever bills were mentioned. Maybe you heard your parents say, "Money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. You should be grateful for what you have." And without realizing it, those words became tiny seeds, dropped into the fertile soil of your young mind. You didn't question them. You simply absorbed them as truth, because as a child, everything the people you loved said became the world you believed in. So, when your father said, "Money is hard to earn," you didn't just hear a statement. You heard a rule, and that rule became a part of your identity. If money is hard to earn, I must work harder, longer, sacrifice more. Or, when your mother said, "Rich people are selfish," you quietly decided, "Then I don't want to be rich. I want to be good." And from that day on, you carried that conflict inside you, the silent tug of war between wanting more and fearing that more would make you a worse person. We all have these inner scripts. They run so deep that we forget they were ever written. They decide how much we save, how much we spend, how we feel when we earn, and even how guilty we feel when life gives us something easier than we thought we deserved. And what's more dangerous, most of these beliefs weren't even ours to begin with. They were inherited, passed down like old family recipes, carried from one generation to another. Our parents didn't mean to limit us. They were just passing down the world they knew, a world where survival came first, and safety meant not dreaming too big. They learned that money was scarce, that good people don't ask for too much, that success comes with shame, jealousy, and isolation. So, when they told you to be realistic, what they really meant was, stay safe. But safety and growth rarely live in the same house. I remember a story about a young boy who loved drawing. He dreamed of becoming an artist. One day, he showed his father a sketch, eyes glowing with pride. But his father, tired from a long day at work, barely looked and said, "That's nice, but you can't make money from that." The boy didn't argue. He just nodded. And in that small moment, a belief was born. My passion doesn't matter if it doesn't make money. Years later, that boy grew into a man who chose a job he hated, stable, practical, predictable. Every time he thought about quitting, something inside whispered, "It's not responsible to chase dreams. Be grateful for what you have." That whisper was the voice of his father, but also the echo of a collective mindset that equates security with sacrifice. You see, beliefs are not built overnight. They're woven, like threads in a fabric, through repetition and emotion. The more we hear something, especially from those we love, the deeper it settles into our subconscious. Psychologists say that by the age of 7, most of our core beliefs about money, love, and self-worth are already shaped. Think about that. At 7 years old, you already had a mental blueprint of what you deserve. You didn't choose it consciously. It was given to you. And unless you pause to re-examine it, you'll keep living inside that blueprint, building your adult life on childhood patterns. For example, imagine a woman who grew up hearing, "Money changes people." Now, as an adult, she earns well, but somehow always ends up back at zero. Every time her account grows, she feels uneasy, as if she's betraying something. So she unconsciously finds ways to spend it, lose it, or give it away. Not because she's irresponsible, but because deep down she believes that holding on to wealth makes her one of them, the greedy ones. This is how limiting beliefs work. They don't scream, they whisper. They guide our choices so subtly that we call it being practical. But practical is often just a disguise for fear. Another man might tell you he doesn't care about money, but secretly feels invisible when others succeed. He avoids chasing opportunities, not because he's lazy, but because success would mean stepping into a role he doesn't feel worthy of. He tells himself, "I'm content." But what he really means is, "I'm scared to outgrow the version of me that feels familiar." Let's pause for a moment. I want you to think of a sentence you heard growing up. One about money, success, or yourself. Maybe it was, "You're not good with numbers. You always mess things up. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much." Hold that sentence in your mind. Now ask yourself, whose voice was it? And more importantly, why are you still letting it narrate your life? Because here's the truth. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who can choose whether to believe it. Our limiting beliefs are like invisible software, installed without permission, but awareness, gentle, honest awareness, is the first step to rewriting them. Once you see the code, you can change it, you can update it, you can even delete what no longer serves you. But that requires courage, because every belief we challenge means letting go of a piece of our identity, a version of us that felt safe, predictable, and small. And it's okay to feel resistance. Change doesn't start with force, it starts with curiosity. Ask yourself, is this belief absolutely true? Or is it just something I learned to survive? Because survival beliefs were necessary when you had nothing else. But you're not just surviving anymore. You're here, listening, awakening. And that means you're ready for more. The truth is, money itself is neutral. It doesn't care who holds it. It doesn't reward the deserving or punish the unworthy. It simply amplifies who you already are. If you are kind, money gives you more ways to express kindness. If you are creative, it gives you resources to create. If you are fearful, it multiplies your fear. So when we say, money changes people, what we really mean is, money reveals people. That's why the work isn't to chase money. It's to heal the beliefs that make you think you don't deserve it. And here's the irony. When you finally let go of the fear, the guilt, the shame, money starts to find its way to you naturally because it's no longer blocked by resistance. You stop pushing it away with thoughts like, "I can't handle that. It's too risky. I don't need much." Instead, your energy says, "I am open. I am capable. I am enough." And life always responds to the energy you hold. Let's revisit that child at the dinner table. He's grown up now. He earns his own income. He has all the freedom his parents dreamed of. But inside, he still feels like that little boy listening to grown-ups worry about bills. He saves not out of wisdom, but fear. He works not from passion, but pressure. He buys things not from joy, but guilt. Because the inner child never learned that money can be safe, abundant, and loving. He only learned that it causes stress. And so, every paycheck, every investment, every decision still carries the echo of that dinner table. Now imagine if one day that man paused and said, "What if my parents were wrong? Not with anger, not with blame, but with compassion." What if he could see that they weren't teaching him truth? They were teaching him fear disguised as wisdom. What if he realized that the world they lived in is not the same as the one he lives in now? That the walls they built to survive, he no longer needs to live inside. Beliefs are powerful, but they are not permanent. They can be rewritten moment by moment, choice by choice. The moment you begin to question them, the cracks appear, and through those cracks, light enters. So tonight, when everything is quiet, take a notebook and write down 3 sentences you've believed about money or yourself. Then ask, who taught me this? And is it still true for me today? You might be surprised at how many of those answers feel outdated, like old clothes that no longer fit the person you've become. Because the truth is, you've grown, you've evolved, you've seen more, felt more, lived more. And maybe, just maybe, it's time your beliefs grew with you. You see, we are not defined by our past. We are shaped by what we choose to believe next. The child you once were needed protection. The adult you are now needs permission. Permission to believe differently, to dream again, to earn without guilt, to thrive without apology. Because abundance isn't something you chase, it's something you remember. It's the natural state of a mind free from fear. So if you ever wonder where your limits began, look back with compassion, not judgment. Those old voices were trying to keep you safe, but safety was never the goal. Freedom is. And freedom begins when you dare to ask, what if I could believe something new? Stay with me. In the next part, we'll explore how to recognize those silent programs running your mind and how to gently rewrite them, step by step. Because knowing where beliefs are born is only the beginning. The real transformation begins when you choose which ones get to live on. There's a story I once heard about a circus elephant. When it was a baby, the trainer tied a small rope around its leg and fastened it to a wooden post. Every day, the baby elephant tried to pull away. It pushed, tugged, and cried, but the rope was too strong. Eventually, it gave up. Years passed. The elephant grew massive, strong enough to pull down trees. Yet, even as an adult, that same small rope kept it tied. It never tried to break free again. Why? Because the elephant wasn't held by the rope anymore. It was held by its belief. That's how silent programming works. You don't see it. You don't question it. You just live according to it, as if it's truth carved into stone. The mind says, this is just who I am. But what if it's just who you were trained to be? Imagine for a moment that your mind is a computer. Every word you heard growing up, every experience that carried strong emotion became a line of code written deep inside your subconscious. Those lines might look like this. I'm not good with money. I need to work hard to deserve rest. I'm unlucky. Success isn't for people like me. You didn't choose those codes. They were installed by parents, teachers, religion, society. And now, as an adult, you run those programs automatically. You don't decide what to do. Your code decides for you. Think about it. How many times have you talked yourself out of an opportunity? How often have you said, I'll start when I'm ready, knowing deep down that you'll never feel ready? That hesitation isn't logic. It's programming. It's the mind's defense system protecting you from risk, rejection, embarrassment. But here's the trick. The same system that keeps you safe also keeps you small. Let's get personal for a second. Maybe you grew up hearing that rich people are greedy. That belief didn't just stay as words. It became a filter through which you saw the world. Now, when you meet someone wealthy, your mind automatically finds flaws. He's probably arrogant. She's lucky. They must have cheated somehow. You don't realize it, but your mind is protecting you, because if rich equals bad, then staying broke equals good and safe. And so unconsciously, you sabotage yourself to stay aligned with that belief. You might avoid taking financial risks, feel guilty when you earn more, or give away money faster than you can make it, not because you're careless, but because deep down your programming says, if I become rich, I'll become one of them. Let's take another example. Say you believe, I have to work hard to deserve success. That sounds noble, doesn't it? It's even praised in society, the hard-working person. But look closer. If deep down you believe that effort equals worth, then ease will always feel wrong. You'll reject simplicity. You'll distrust opportunities that come naturally. Even when life offers you an easier way, you'll unconsciously complicate it, because struggle is your comfort zone. You're not addicted to work. You're addicted to proving you deserve what you already do. This is the essence of the silent program. You don't question it because it feels like truth. You call it reality. But reality is just your programming reflected back at you. It's not that you can't attract abundance. It's that your internal software keeps deleting it before it settles. Let's look at something subtle: self-sabotage. Have you ever noticed how you make progress and then suddenly pull back? You start saving money, then spend it impulsively. You start a new project, then lose motivation. You meet someone who sees your value, and suddenly you ghost them. That's not random. That's your subconscious trying to restore balance, not to success, but to familiarity. Because to the subconscious mind, familiar equals safe. And if success feels unfamiliar, the mind will do anything to bring you back to the known, even if the known hurts. Psychologists call this the comfort zone, but in truth, it's more like a loyalty zone. You're loyal to the old identity you built around your limitations. You've worn it for so long that taking it off feels like betrayal. If you grew up around people who struggled, becoming abundant might make you feel like you're leaving them behind. So you shrink, not out of weakness, but out of loyalty. But here's the paradox. The people who truly love you don't want you small. They just didn't know how to grow themselves. And maybe, just maybe, your courage to grow is the permission they've been waiting for. Let's pause. Take a slow breath. In and out. Now ask yourself gently, what am I loyal to that no longer serves me? Is it the voice that says, people like me never make it? Is it the guilt that whispers, who do you think you are to want more? Is it the fear that says, if I change, I'll be alone? Because every time you follow that voice, you reinforce the code. And every time you question it, you weaken it. The truth is, most of us aren't afraid of failure. We're afraid of identity loss. We fear who we'll become once we stop being who we were. It's not easy to face that, but awareness is liberation. When you start seeing your behaviors as programming, not personality, everything changes. Instead of saying, I'm lazy, you can say, my system learned to conserve energy when effort didn't feel safe. Instead of, I'm bad with money, you can say, I learned to associate money with pain. I can learn again. Instead of, I'm not confident, you can say, confidence wasn't rewarded where I came from. I'm ready to reward it now. This shift from blame to understanding is the key to rewriting your entire operating system. Let's take this even deeper. Your subconscious mind doesn't understand language. It understands emotion. So the more emotion tied to a belief, the stronger it becomes. That's why memories of shame or fear stick longer than facts. You might forget details from last week, but you'll remember the sting of embarrassment from 10 years ago because your body recorded it as danger. Now, every time you approach a similar situation, your mind flashes the old signal. Warning, this hurts. And you retreat, thinking you're being wise. But it's not wisdom, it's protection, outdated protection. The question is, protection from what? From pain that no longer exists. The subconscious doesn't care about time. It doesn't know the difference between then and now. To it, everything is still happening. So when you say, I'm afraid to fail, you're not afraid of the future. You're afraid of reliving the past. Maybe the time you were laughed at. Maybe the time you were told that's not for you. Maybe the time you believe them. And that's the loop you live in. Not because you're broken, but because the mind thinks it's keeping you safe by repeating what once worked. Avoidance. But safety isn't living. It's surviving. And you weren't born just to survive. So how do we break free? Not by force, not by self-hate, but by awareness. By catching the code in real time. The next time you say, "I can't afford this," pause. Ask, "Is that true or programmed?" The next time you say, "I'm not ready," ask, "Who told me that being ready means being fearless?" The next time you think, "People like me can't do that," ask, "Who decided what people like me means?" That pause, that question, is the crack in the code. And through that crack, light starts to enter. There's a concept in neuroscience called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on new experiences and beliefs. Every time you question an old thought and replace it with a new one, you're literally creating a new neural pathway. Your brain begins to favor this new route, and over time, that becomes your new normal. That's how transformation happens, not in a weekend seminar, but in quiet moments of awareness, repeated again and again, until one day you realize the old rope doesn't hold you anymore. Let me tell you something powerful. You don't need to fight your old beliefs. You just need to stop feeding them. They're like weeds in a garden. When you stop giving them attention, sunlight, and emotion, they wither on their own. Instead, plant new seeds. Small thoughts like, "It's safe for me to grow." "Money can be a force of good." "I can change without losing love." Repeat them not because you're trying to convince yourself, but because you're reprogramming your emotional memory. Some people call this manifestation, but truly, it's alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align, life begins to mirror that energy back to you. Opportunities appear, not magically, but logically, because now your mind isn't rejecting them. You're finally open enough to notice them. So, remember this. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you deserve. And you'll only ever allow as much love, wealth, or peace as your inner programming says is safe. That's why your next breakthrough won't come from working harder, but from thinking freer. In the end, freedom doesn't begin when you earn more. It begins the moment you stop believing the lies you inherited. Because the wall you've been pushing against your whole life was never real. It was built from words, fears, and stories you didn't choose, but you can choose to release them now. So the question is no longer, "Can I break free?" but "Am I ready to stop holding myself back?" Stay with me. In the next part, we'll explore how to make that inner shift, the exact turning point where old beliefs collapse and a new relationship with money, self-worth, and abundance begins. Because awareness is power, but transformation is choice. And your choice begins right now. Let's pause for a moment. Take a breath. Feel the weight of everything you've believed about money, about success, about what you think you deserve. Now ask yourself this question. What if money was never the goal, but simply a mirror? A mirror reflecting the way you see yourself. Most people spend their lives chasing the reflection, trying to change what's on the surface, the job, the business, the income. But very few ever realize that the reflection only changes when you change. And that right there is the shift. You see, when you believe money is the goal, you're trapped. Because every time you reach it, you move the finish line. You earn a little more, and somehow it's never enough. You hit a new milestone, and still, that quiet voice says, "You're not there yet." But when you realize money is simply a result, an echo of your mindset, your energy, your sense of worth, the entire game changes. It's like turning the lights on in a dark room. The walls that once looked solid begin to fade. You finally see that they were never walls at all, just shadows created by old fears and borrowed beliefs. Think about this. If a child grows up hearing that rich people are greedy, what happens when that child becomes an adult and starts earning more? They'll feel guilty for having it. And guilt always finds a way to give back what it doesn't think it deserves. If you secretly believe that money changes people, you'll unconsciously avoid becoming one of those changed people. So even when opportunities knock, you'll close the door without realizing why. And that's the tragedy. Not that people fail, but that they self-sabotage because they don't want to betray their own identity. Let's try something. Close your eyes for a moment Imagine that every belief you have about money, every memory, every story, is a small thread tied to your hands. Some of those threads pull you forward. They remind you of your abilities, your strength, your dreams, but others pull you back. They whisper old warnings from your parents, your past, your pain. Now, what if you could start cutting those threads one by one? The first one might be the belief that you have to struggle to earn. Cut it. The second might be the belief that you need permission to want more. Cut it. And the third might be the belief that your worth is defined by how much you make. Cut that one too. Do you feel lighter? That's what freedom feels like. Not the freedom that comes from money, but the kind that allows money to flow naturally, without shame, without fear. When your mindset shifts, everything else follows. You start to see abundance not as something to chase, but as something you can allow. You stop competing for space and start expanding your own. You begin to trust that you're not taking from the world, you're creating with it. That's the turning point of every wealthy mind. Not the day they earn their first million, but the day they stop believing they're not enough. Because the truth is, the richest thing you'll ever possess is your belief. The right one builds empires. The wrong one builds prisons. And here's the paradox most people miss. The more you chase money to feel worthy, the more unworthy you'll feel. But the moment you start to feel worthy without it, money begins to find you. It's not magic, it's alignment. Think about the last time you met someone who radiated calm confidence. Not arrogance, not ego, just quiet certainty. You probably trusted them immediately. You wanted to work with them, buy from them, learn from them. That's what a healthy money mindset does. It makes you magnetic because people, opportunities, and abundance all flow toward energy that says, I'm enough, I'm open, I'm ready. So here's the question that changes everything. If money wasn't about survival, what would it mean to you? Would it be a tool for creation, a way to express your purpose, a channel for impact? Or would it still be a silent test, proof that you're finally good enough? If it's the second, then maybe you've still been playing by someone else's rules. The moment you rewrite the story, when you stop chasing and start becoming, that's when the invisible wall finally cracks. You are not here to prove your worth. You are here to express it. And that expression, your growth, your peace, your light, will naturally attract the wealth that matches it. So stop asking, how can I make more money? Start asking, how can I become the person who easily attracts it? Because one question leads to endless struggle. The other leads to freedom. In this moment, right now, you can feel it. The shift, that quiet click in your mind when something falls into place. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a whisper that says, maybe I've been looking in the wrong direction. And when you hear that whisper, don't ignore it. Follow it, because it's not just an idea. It's your higher self reminding you that the wall was never real. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll move from realization to rebuilding, from breaking beliefs to building the kind of mindset that wealth can trust. Because knowing the truth is one thing, but living it, that's where transformation begins. When the old beliefs begin to crack, a question quietly rises. So, now what? If I've torn down the walls that held me back, what do I build in their place? That's where this part begins. With construction. Not the kind that uses bricks and tools, but the kind that rebuilds the way you think, feel, and move through the world. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are while you do it. Let's start with this. Principle 1, awareness before action. You can't change what you refuse to see. And most people, when they start working on their money mindset, jump straight into action. New habits, new jobs, new side hustles. But action without awareness is like planting seeds in poisoned soil. So before you try to fix your finances, pause and look inward. Ask yourself, when I think about money, what emotions rise first? Fear, guilt, excitement, shame? What did I learn about money growing up? Did your parents argue about it, hide it, chase it? What do I believe rich people are like? Every answer you uncover is a piece of the puzzle, the code your subconscious has been running for years. And here's the key. You don't need to fight those beliefs. You just need to see them, because awareness dissolves illusion. Once you recognize a belief as a belief, not a truth, it starts losing power. That's the moment you go from being controlled by your programming to reprogramming it. Principle 2. Replace scarcity with safety. You've heard of the scarcity mindset. It's that quiet panic that says, what if there's not enough? What if I lose it all? What if someone takes my place? That mindset doesn't just affect your bank account. It shapes how you move through life. It makes you hoard energy, fear change, mistrust opportunity. But here's something you might not realize. You can't force yourself to stop thinking in scarcity. You can only teach your nervous system that it's safe to have more. So how do you do that? Start small. When you receive money, no matter how little, pause and breathe. Feel gratitude, not urgency. When you pay for something, say silently, "There's more where that came from." That phrase, simple as it is, reprograms your brain. It reminds your body that giving and receiving are both parts of the same flow, because true wealth isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of safety. When your body feels safe with abundance, your mind stops blocking it. Principle 3. Identity before income. This is the most powerful and the most overlooked law of success. You will never outperform your self-image. If deep down you see yourself as someone who just gets by, no amount of hustling will keep the money from slipping through your fingers. You don't earn money to become wealthy. You become wealthy so that you can earn money. Wealth is an identity long before it becomes a number. So ask yourself, how does a wealthy version of me think, speak, and act? Does that version of you complain about luck? Or do they create it? Do they chase opportunities or attract them through clarity and confidence? Do they fear spending or see it as an investment in expansion? Every day, act 1% more like that version of yourself. Dress like them. Speak like them. Think like them. At first, it might feel like pretending, but it's not. It's practicing. And what you practice, you become. Because identity isn't fixed, it's a habit. Principle 4. The rule of energy. Money is energy. It flows where attention, gratitude, and confidence go. Think of yourself as a channel. The cleaner your flow, the easier abundance moves through you. When you resent others for having more, you block your own flow. When you spend out of guilt, you leak it. When you hoard out of fear, you stagnate it. But when you give with joy, when you invest with trust, when you receive with humility, you become part of the universal exchange that never runs out. Remember this line, your golden mantra. Money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies what's already inside. So if you want to attract more, focus on becoming more of you. More generous, more curious, more creative, more alive. The more authentic you are, the more energy you hold. And energy always finds its match in the physical world. Principle 5. Align time with value. Most people trade time for money, but the wealthy trade value for impact. There's a difference. When you trade time, you're limited. 24 hours, one body, one mind. When you trade value, you expand. Ideas, systems, influence, service. So the question isn't, how can I make more per hour? But how can I create something that gives value even when I'm not there? Maybe it's building a skill that compounds. Maybe it's writing, teaching, mentoring, or designing something that keeps serving others long after you stop working. That's how wealth multiplies, not by working harder, but by working smarter with heart. Golden reminder, the 3 alignments. Let's simplify everything into one powerful framework. To attract and sustain wealth, align 3 things. Mindset, what you believe. Emotion, what you feel safe receiving. Action, what you consistently do. When any one of these is out of sync, abundance can't stay. For example, you can take all the right actions, but if deep down you feel unworthy, it will slip away. Or you can believe you deserve wealth, but if your emotions are full of fear and guilt, you'll unconsciously push it away. The magic happens when all 3 move together, when your thoughts, feelings, and habits all point in the same direction. That's when money stops being an uphill battle and starts becoming a natural rhythm, a whisper to remember. There's one sentence I want you to carry from this chapter, a quiet truth that can change your life. The rich don't think differently because they have money. They have money because they think differently. Let that sink in. Because when you shift the foundation of your thinking, you don't just earn more, you become more. You stop seeing wealth as a prize to chase and start seeing it as a reflection of the person you've grown into. And now imagine this. You wake up one morning, and before you even check your phone or think about bills, you whisper to yourself, I am safe, I am capable, I'm open to more. You go through your day not trying to force success, but allowing it. You make decisions not from fear, but from trust. And suddenly, life starts to respond differently. Opportunities appear in places you used to overlook. People reach out. Ideas click. That's not coincidence. It's coherence. It's the universe reflecting your alignment back to you. So, as we move forward, remember, mindset is the seed, emotion is the soil, action is the sunlight. Nurture all three and wealth will grow, not as something you chase, but as something you become. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll go beyond strategies, into the heart, because behind every financial transformation is an emotional one. There was a man named Daniel, not a superstar, not a millionaire, just a quiet, hard-working man who believed that life was something you endured, not something you designed. He worked as an accountant for 15 years. Same office, same gray walls, same tired smile. Every morning he'd take the same train, sit in the same seat, and stare out of the window at the same streets he thought he'd never escape. He didn't hate his life, he was just used to it. He believed this was how life was meant to be, predictable, safe, small. But deep down, there was a quiet ache, the feeling that he was made for more, but didn't deserve it. He'd tell himself, people like me don't start businesses. People like me don't make six figures. People like me should just be grateful. That's what his father used to say whenever Daniel dreamed out loud. Keep your head down, son. We're not those kinds of people. And so, he believed it. He believed in smallness. He believed in safety. He believed in limits. Then one evening, everything changed. Not because of some miracle, but because of something ordinary. He was going through old boxes in his attic, cleaning up after his parents had passed. Buried under old tax forms and faded photographs, he found a notebook. It was his father's. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed. Inside, Daniel saw numbers, plans, sketches, business ideas, dozens of them. His father, the man who told him to play it safe, had once dreamed of building something of his own. On the last page, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words that stopped Daniel's breath. Maybe I wasn't enough. He read that line again and again until his hands trembled. In that moment, he realized the wall he had lived behind all his life wasn't his. It was inherited. His father hadn't meant to limit him. He had only passed down his own fear, and Daniel had carried that fear like a family heirloom. He sat there for hours, silent. The world felt different, heavier, but somehow clearer. For the first time, he asked himself, what if I don't have to repeat his story? That question became his spark. Over the next few months, Daniel began a quiet revolution inside himself. Not a loud one, not the kind you post about online, but the kind that begins in whispers. He started small. Every morning, instead of saying, I have to go to work, he said, I get to build something today. He didn't quit his job overnight. He didn't suddenly become fearless, but he began noticing his own thoughts. The way he'd say, I can't, without even trying. He replaced each I can't with let's see how. He began reading books about money, not to chase it, but to understand it. He took a small online course in investing. He started helping small businesses with bookkeeping after hours, something he had always wanted to do. At first, no one noticed, but something inside him was shifting. He was beginning to see money differently, not as something that controlled him, but as something that responded to him. 6 months later, something strange happened. One of his freelance clients, a young woman running a local cafe, asked him to help organize her finances. He did it for free. She was so impressed that she referred him to 3 more cafe owners. Within a few weeks, he had more clients than he could handle in the evenings. So, one morning, Daniel did something that terrified him. He walked into his boss's office and said, "I think it's time for me to try something new." His voice shook. His palms were sweaty, but there was a calm under the fear, a knowing that this time he wasn't running from something. He was walking toward himself. The first year of self-employment was hard. He made mistakes. He undercharged. He doubted himself almost daily. But every time he wanted to quit, he'd open that old notebook, touch those 4 words, and whisper, "I am enough." Slowly, the walls began to crumble. The man who once believed wealth was not for people like him started helping others believe it was. He began teaching small business owners how to manage money with confidence, how to break their own fears around finance. He didn't just grow his business, he grew his impact. By year 3, he had built a small consulting firm. He wasn't just earning more than he ever had before, he was becoming someone new. The money mattered, yes, it brought freedom, but the real transformation was invisible. He finally believed he was worthy of the life he wanted. One evening, while speaking at a local event, Daniel said something that silenced the room. "I used to think money was my problem, but the truth is, it was never about money. It was about what I believed I deserved." He smiled and added, "The moment I stopped fighting to prove my worth, money stopped fighting to stay away. People didn't just clap, they cried because they saw themselves in his story. They too had inherited walls built by generations of fear. They too had convinced themselves that playing small was safer. But Daniel showed them that safety doesn't come from staying small. It comes from believing you can grow." Now, here's what makes his story powerful. He didn't become someone new by changing everything overnight. He became someone new by changing one belief at a time. He turned "I can't" into "maybe I can." He turned "I'm not enough" into "I'm learning to be." And eventually he turned "I'm not the kind of person who" into "why not me?" That question, "why not me?" became his compass. And maybe it can be yours too. Because the truth is, wealth isn't reserved for the lucky or the chosen. It's for the ones brave enough to look at their beliefs and rebuild them. When you strip away the noise, the strategies, the books, the courses, it all comes down to this simple truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe. Daniel didn't wait to feel worthy after success. He became worthy, and then success followed. That's the order most people get wrong, and it's the only order that truly works. So, as you listen to this story, maybe it's time to ask yourself, whose beliefs are you still carrying? Whose fears are you still honoring? And when will you decide that you no longer have to? Because freedom doesn't begin when you earn your first million. It begins the moment you say, "I am enough," even before the world agrees. Stay with me. In the next part, we'll take Daniel's lesson and turn it into your own. We'll explore how to apply these insights practically, daily, deeply, so that your new beliefs become your new reality. Have you ever wondered why 2 people with the same education, the same skills, and even the same starting point end up in 2 completely different worlds after just a few years? One becomes financially free, traveling the world, while the other is still worrying about rent and bills. It's not because of luck. It's because one person applied the lesson and the other just understood it. Understanding something changes your thoughts. Applying it changes your life. So now let's walk slowly into this part, the application mindset, because what you do with the knowledge of limited beliefs will decide whether you stay behind that invisible wall or finally step through it. 1. Awareness is the first door. Imagine walking through your house in the dark. You bump into things, you fall, you get frustrated. That's what life feels like when you move through it with unconscious beliefs. You might say to yourself, "I'm not good with money. I can't save. I just don't have enough. I'm too old to start something new. People like me never get rich." Every time you repeat that, it's like hammering another brick into the wall. And yet, awareness is the flashlight. You can't fix what you can't see. So start small. Every time you hear yourself saying something limiting, pause. Ask, is this absolutely true? Or is this just something I've repeated for too long? Write it down. Name it, because the moment you name your belief, it loses half its power. You see, mindset work isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about noticing when your thoughts are lying to you. 2. Challenge the narrative. Now that you've noticed the belief, the next step is to challenge it, not with anger, but with curiosity. Let's take an example. You think, I'm not good with money. Ask yourself, when did I first start believing that? Who told me that? Have I ever actually tried to be good with money? You'll often find that this belief didn't come from you. It came from your parents arguing about bills when you were a child, from a teacher who said you'd never succeed, from a friend who mocked you when you failed. These words became a story, and then that story became your truth. But here's the twist. You can rewrite it. Instead of, I'm not good with money, try, I'm learning how to manage money better each day. Instead of, I never have enough, say, I'm opening space for more abundance. Sounds simple. Yes. But the subconscious listens to repetition more than reason. Repeat new beliefs often enough, and your brain starts to seek evidence for them. You begin to notice opportunities where you used to see obstacles. That's the first crack in the wall. 3. Build habits that align with your new beliefs. Now that your inner dialogue is changing, it's time to let your actions reflect it. Beliefs without habits are like seeds without soil. They can't grow. Let's say you want to break the belief. I can't save money. Don't just tell yourself you can. Prove it in small, consistent ways. Start with something ridiculously simple. Saving 1% of your income. When you get comfortable, make it 2%, then 5%. It's not about the amount. It's about building trust with yourself. Every small win is a whisper to your subconscious. See, we can handle money. We can grow. This is how self-trust, the foundation of all wealth, is built. The same applies to any limiting belief. If you believe you're not confident, start speaking up once a day, in meetings, with friends, even online. If you believe you're not creative, draw something small, write a paragraph, sing a song. You're not proving it to others. You're reprogramming yourself. Consistency, not intensity, rewires the brain. 4. Environment shapes belief. Even the strongest mindset will crack if you live surrounded by negativity. If everyone around you complains about money, mocks ambition, or believes the system is rigged, you'll eventually absorb that energy like smoke filling a room. To apply a new mindset, you must breathe in new air. Start curating your environment. Listen to people who inspire you. Podcasts, audiobooks, mentors. Follow those who talk about possibility, not limitation. Have at least one conversation each week with someone who expands your perspective. And if you can't find such people yet, don't worry. Books are friends too. Your environment isn't just physical. It's digital, emotional, energetic. Protect your mental space like a sacred garden. Only allow in what helps you grow. Because belief is like fire. It can light your way or burn you down, depending on who's holding the match. 5. Apply the reversal practice. Here's a powerful exercise that top mindset coaches use. Reverse the belief. Take any limiting statement and flip it on its head. Example, I'll never make enough money. I always find ways to increase my income. I'm unlucky. I create my own opportunities. I'm too late. I'm right on time for my purpose. Then, act as if it's already true for one day. Move, speak, and decide like the version of you who already believes that. Notice how your energy shifts. Notice how your posture changes. Notice how people respond differently. This is not pretending. It's training. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between imagination and experience. So every time you act as if, you build neural pathways for that reality. Over time, it becomes your new normal. 6. The power of self-compassion. But here's something most people forget when they try to change. You will fail. You will fall back into old beliefs. You will doubt yourself again. And that's okay. Breaking a lifetime of conditioning doesn't happen in a week. So instead of blaming yourself, practice self-compassion. When you catch an old belief, smile gently and say, there you are again, but I'm choosing differently now. Treat your mind like a child learning to walk. It doesn't need punishment. It needs patience. Self-compassion is not weakness. It's emotional safety, and only in safety can transformation take root. Think of your inner world as a muscle. Every repetition, awareness, challenge, new habit makes it stronger, but rest and kindness are the recovery that allow growth. 7. Integrate through reflection. Every night before you sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. What limiting belief did I notice today? How did I respond differently? What small win can I celebrate? This is how you make mindset work practical. No vague motivation, no empty affirmations, just daily reflection. Reflection is the bridge between awareness and wisdom. Without it, you forget your progress. And one more secret: gratitude amplifies change. When you thank yourself, even for small steps, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing that behavior. So whisper it softly. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for trying again. Thank you for not giving up. That's how belief turns into identity. 8. Turn knowledge into service. True wealth, the kind that lasts, doesn't stop at you. Once you begin breaking your own limiting beliefs, help others do the same. Talk about your journey. Share what you've learned, even if it's small. Because teaching reinforces learning, and contribution turns healing into purpose. When you tell someone, "I used to think like that too, but here's what helped me," you're not just guiding them, you're anchoring your new belief deeper in yourself. Money follows value, and value comes from serving others authentically. That's the quiet truth behind every mindset shift that leads to abundance. 9. From practice to identity. The final step is subtle but powerful. Stop saying, "I'm working on it." Start saying, "This is who I am." Because once you embody a belief, effort becomes flow. You no longer try to be confident. You simply are. You no longer hope to attract wealth. You naturally create it. Every thought, decision, and action starts aligning effortlessly. That's when the wall completely disappears. Because the truth is, it was never real. It was just a story you finally stopped telling yourself. So tonight, when you turn off the light and lie in bed, I want you to remember this. Every time you question a limiting thought, every time you choose a better belief, every time you take one small action aligned with abundance, you're not just changing your finances. You're changing your identity. You're building a mind that believes in possibilities. And once your mind expands, it never goes back. Now that you've seen how to apply the mindset shift, let's step back and look at the essence, the pure truth behind all of this. What is the real nature of limited beliefs, and why do they hold such power? In the next part, we uncover the heart of it all. Close your eyes for a moment, take a slow breath in, and let it go. Now, think back to everything we've walked through together. The invisible walls, the quiet fears, the voices in your head that once told you you weren't enough. We've talked about awareness, about rewriting your story, about turning small actions into new patterns. But beneath all those techniques, there lies something deeper, something that doesn't just change your mindset, but transforms who you are. And that's what this part is about. The essence of the lesson. The truth beneath all truths. 1. The real prison is invisible. You see, people think poverty is a lack of money, but real poverty is a lack of possibility. Because the world you see isn't built from facts, it's built from beliefs. 2 people can live the same day, face the same problem, and yet one sees an opportunity, while the other only sees an obstacle. Same situation, different world. That's because your outer reality is just a reflection of your inner dialogue. The walls you hit, the ones that feel solid and immovable, are often built from sentences like, "I can't," "It's too late." That's not for people like me. They feel like truth because you've believed them for too long. But if you look closer, you'll realize they're just thoughts wearing the mask of reality. The mind is a brilliant storyteller. It creates stories to protect you from pain, failure, rejection. But over time, those stories stop protecting you. They start limiting you. And that's the essence of limited belief. It's not evil. It's just outdated self-protection. like armor that once saved you, but now keeps you from moving forward. 2. The moment you doubt the wall, it cracks. There's a beautiful thing about beliefs. They exist only as long as you believe them. They don't have physical weight or shape or form. The moment you start to question them, they begin to fade. It's like standing in front of a locked door your whole life, until one day you realize the door was never locked at all. You simply never tried the handle. When you whisper to yourself, "What if I can?" When you dare to think, "Maybe I deserve more," that's the sound of the first crack forming in the wall. The rest is just walking through. 3. You don't need permission. Many of us wait for something before we allow ourselves to change. A sign, a mentor, a lucky break, a moment when we finally feel ready. But readiness is a lie the mind tells to keep you safe. You don't need permission to rewrite your story. You don't need to be rich to start thinking like someone abundant. You don't need to be confident to take the first step. Confidence is what comes from taking it. The shift begins not when life changes, but when you decide that you're worthy of change. Because you've been enough this whole time. You just forgot. 4. The inner child and the healing. Every limited belief has a voice behind it, and that voice usually belongs to your younger self. The child who felt invisible when they tried. The teenager who failed once and decided they were not smart enough. The adult who got rejected and concluded they weren't lovable. You can't silence that voice with anger. You heal it by listening. Next time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't," pause and ask, "Who inside me is saying that?" Then answer with compassion, "I know you're scared, but we're safe now, and we can try again." This is the quiet work no one sees. The inner reprinting, the healing that turns fear into wisdom. When you do that, your beliefs stop being cages. They become teachers. 5. Money, mindset, and meaning. Now let's bring this back to money, the mirror of our beliefs. Money itself is neutral. It doesn't judge. It doesn't choose. It simply flows toward energy that welcomes it. If you carry guilt about having it, it slips away. If you believe it's scarce, it hides from you. But if you see it as a tool, not a measure of worth, but a means to grow, to serve, to create, then it begins to find you naturally. The truth is, wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you align with. When your beliefs align with abundance, when you act with intention, give with generosity, and stay open to receive, money becomes an echo of your inner expansion. So the real healing isn't about earning more. It's about feeling worthy of what you already desire. 6. Your mindset is a mirror of your identity. We've talked about beliefs. We've talked about habits. But beneath all of that lies your identity. Because every belief starts with I am. I am not enough. I am bad with money. I am unlucky. These are not facts. They are choices. And identity can change the moment you decide to define yourself differently. Try whispering this to yourself right now. I am learning. I am growing. I am open to abundance. I am safe to receive. Notice how your body feels when you say that. Notice the warmth in your chest, the quiet calm that follows. That's the real you, not the voice of fear, but the voice of truth. Because deep down, you've always known you were meant for more. You just needed permission to remember. 7. The essence of abundance. Abundance isn't a number, it's a state of being. It's the feeling that you have enough, even as you grow. It's the peace that comes from knowing you are capable of more without rushing to prove it. When you shift from needing to allowing, from chasing to creating, you align with the natural rhythm of life. Abundance doesn't come to those who demand it. It comes to those who trust it. And trust begins within. Trust that you can handle success. Trust that you can heal your mistakes. Trust that even when things fall apart, you are learning something essential. This is the mindset that turns pain into wisdom and wisdom into wealth. 8. From limitation to legacy. Here's something beautiful. When you break a limiting belief, you don't just free yourself, you free everyone who comes after you. Every time you say, I can, you rewrite the story for your children, your community, your future self. Your courage to grow becomes a ripple because someone, somewhere, will hear your story and whisper, if they could, maybe I can too. That's legacy. Not money, not fame, but impact. A healed mind quietly heals the world. 9. Returning to the self. After all the learning, all the steps, all the rewiring, you'll realize something profound. You were never truly broken. You were just buried under other people's beliefs. Every exercise, every reflection, every journal entry, they're not creating a new you. They're revealing the real you that's always been there. The one who's confident, capable, compassionate. The one who doesn't need to prove worth because worth was never missing. And when you live from that place, life starts to mirror your peace. You attract people who match your energy. Opportunities flow naturally. Money becomes a companion, not a master. That's the quiet freedom we all seek. And it starts the moment you remember who you really are. 10. The final truth. So if we were to boil everything down to one sentence, it would be this. Your life expands or contracts based on what you believe you deserve. That's the secret the wealthy, the fulfilled, the peaceful all understand. Not because they were born lucky, but because they dared to believe something different. They stopped asking, "Can I?" and started saying, "Why not me?" That's the moment the invisible wall dissolves. That's the moment abundance begins. Pause for a breath. Let these words sink in, not as motivation, but as memory, because somewhere inside you, you already knew all this. You just needed someone to remind you. And maybe tonight, that reminder found you. Now that you've seen the truth behind your beliefs, let's slow down together. In the next part, I want to speak to your heart, not your mind, because the journey of healing and abundance begins not with logic, but with love. Take a breath, a deep one. Let it fill your chest, and release it slowly. You've walked through a long journey, from seeing the invisible walls that once held you back, to understanding how your beliefs shape every corner of your reality. And here we are, near the end of this chapter, where words become whispers and lessons become feelings. This is not a lecture. This is a conversation between your heart and the part of you that's been waiting to be heard. 1. The quiet weight you carry. You've been strong for so long, haven't you? Strong for your family, strong for your responsibilities, strong even when no one noticed how tired you were. And yet, inside, there's that quiet ache, the feeling that no matter how hard you try, something invisible keeps pulling you back. That's the weight of old beliefs, not visible but heavy, not loud but constant. The belief that you must struggle to deserve happiness. The belief that you have to be perfect to be loved. The belief that money, success, or peace belong to other people. You've carried them for years, so long that they began to feel like you. But tonight, maybe for the first time, you can set them down. Just for a while. Just to breathe freely again. 2. You were never broken. I want you to hear this. Not just with your mind, but with your heart. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You're simply becoming. Everything you've gone through, the rejections, the failures, the nights you doubted your worth, they weren't signs of weakness. They were invitations. Invitations to grow deeper roots, to build gentleness, to understand life beyond the surface. Because only those who've walked through darkness truly understand the value of light. And that's you. Every scar you have is not proof of pain. It's proof of healing. 3. The beauty of imperfection. You see, somewhere along the way, we were taught that we need to be fixed before we can be loved, that we need to achieve something before we're worthy of rest. But that's not true. You were worthy even when you were struggling. You were enough even when you were uncertain. Your imperfection is not your flaw, it's your fingerprint. The cracks in you are not there to break you. They're there to let the light in. Every human being who ever inspired the world started from a place of doubt. They questioned, they fell, they lost faith, and yet they stood up again, not because they were fearless, but because they learned to walk even with fear beside them. And that's courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to continue in spite of it. 4. The heart and money. Let's talk gently, for a moment, about money again, because that's what this journey started with. Money isn't cold or greedy. It simply amplifies who you already are. If your heart is kind, wealth gives you more ways to express that kindness. If your heart is generous, abundance gives you more room to give. So don't be afraid to want it. Don't apologize for dreaming of more. Wanting abundance doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. You were meant to live fully, not just survive. You were meant to build, to create, to contribute, not to constantly worry if you're enough. Abundance isn't just about what's in your wallet. It's what's in your spirit. It's waking up in the morning knowing that you are free. Free to choose, free to give, free to love. That's real wealth. 5. Forgive yourself. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. For the years you wasted, for the chances you didn't take, for the people you trusted who didn't see your worth. But what if none of it was truly wasted? What if every detour was part of the way? Forgive yourself, not because you deserve a free pass, but because you deserve peace. You did the best you could with what you knew then, and now you know better. So you can do better. That's growth. That's healing. That's grace. When you forgive yourself, you make space for life to bloom again, because guilt blocks abundance faster than any external force ever could. Let it go. Let the past be what it was, a lesson, not a life sentence. 6. Gratitude, the gentle power. You've probably heard it before. Be grateful. But gratitude isn't just a feel-good word. It's energetic truth. When you focus on what you already have, your brain shifts from survival to creation. You start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. You begin to attract things that match your vibration of peace. Gratitude is what keeps abundance flowing. So tonight, before you sleep, whisper 3 quiet thank yous. Thank you for the strength that kept me standing. Thank you for the lessons I didn't want but needed. Thank you for the person I'm still becoming. You'll feel something soften inside. That's your soul unclenching. That's abundance entering. 7. The gentle reminder about fear. Fear will always visit. It's part of being human. But fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means something important is near. So the next time you feel afraid of trying, of failing, of being seen, whisper back, "You can come along, but I'm still moving." Walk with fear, not away from it, because courage isn't a roar. Sometimes it's just a quiet voice at night saying, "I'll try again tomorrow." That's enough. That's more than enough. 8. The mirror moment. I want you to imagine standing in front of a mirror, not the one that reflects your body, but the one that reflects your soul. Look into your own eyes. You might see fatigue, maybe some doubt. But if you look a little deeper, past the noise, past the stories, you'll see light. Soft, steady, resilient light. That's who you really are. That's the part of you that no failure, no belief, no person can take away. It's been there all along, waiting for you to notice. Every time you choose kindness over fear, it shines brighter. Every time you forgive, it glows stronger. Every time you believe in yourself, even just a little, it expands. That light is your truth. It's the proof that you're still becoming who you were always meant to be. 9. The ocean inside you. If your life were an ocean, there would be waves, some calm, some wild. But beneath the surface, the water is always still. That stillness, that peace, is who you are at your core. When storms come, you don't need to fight the waves. You just need to remember the calm beneath. Your circumstances may change. People may come and go. Money may rise and fall. But that inner stillness, your awareness, your truth, remains. That's where real freedom lives. And when you live from that calm, you stop chasing and start allowing. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop surviving and start living. 10. A letter to you. If I could leave you with one message, one truth to carry beyond this story, it would be this. You are enough, not because you've achieved enough, not because you've proven enough, but simply because you are. You are enough to build a life that feels like home, enough to attract abundance that feels aligned, enough to love and be loved without earning it. And when doubt comes, as it always will, return here, return to this truth. Let it anchor you. Close your eyes and say it softly, like a prayer. I am enough. I am learning. I am growing. I am open to abundance. I am safe to receive. You'll feel something inside you exhale. That's the sound of peace returning. Because abundance isn't out there. It's right here, inside the calm, steady rhythm of your breath. 11. The transition to new beginnings. So maybe this isn't really an ending. Maybe it's a doorway. A doorway to a version of you that finally believes in your own potential. A you that no longer apologizes for wanting more. A you that walks with gentleness, but also with power. From this moment forward, may you see money as energy, not fear. May you see failure as feedback, not proof. May you see yourself truly as limitless. And if you ever forget, just remember this journey. Remember that once, through words and whispers, you saw the wall and stepped through it. That's what transformation feels like. Quiet, steady, real. 12. Closing breath. Let's end the way we began, with breath. Inhale hope. Exhale doubt. Inhale possibility. Exhale the past. Inhale love. Exhale everything that's not yours to carry anymore. You've done enough. You've become more than you know. And maybe, just maybe, you're already free. If this message touched something in you, if even one line made you pause and breathe differently, then stay, because your journey doesn't end here. In the next part, we'll walk together into the first action, the first commitment toward a truly abundant life. If you're still here, if you've listened all the way to this point, then maybe, just maybe, something inside you has shifted. Maybe it's small, a spark, a quiet awareness that whispers, I don't have to stay the same. And that's where real transformation begins, not with a plan, not with a course, but with a decision to believe that you deserve more than survival, that wealth, peace, and freedom aren't gifts for the lucky. They're rewards for those who dare to believe they're worthy. So take a breath. Let that truth sink in. You are not your past. You are not your parents' fears. You are not your mistakes nor your failures. You are the author of your story, and you can rewrite it, starting now. Because the invisible wall that once stood between you and abundance was never made of stone. It was made of thoughts, and thoughts can change. Maybe tonight, when everything goes quiet, you'll think about this. What if the version of you that you dream about, the calm, confident, abundant version, is not someone else you must become, but the real you, waiting for you to believe again? That's the essence of healing your financial mindset. It's not chasing after more. It's remembering that you already are enough, that you already have what it takes. You just need to stop fighting your own worth. And if this message touched you, if it made you pause, reflect, or simply feel something true, then let's stay on this journey together. Because this isn't just another video. This is a place where consciousness meets growth, where every story helps you peel back another layer of the old you and step closer to the person you were always meant to be. This is Audiobook Gold, where your mind heals and your beliefs evolve. So, if you found light in these words, hit subscribe, not for me, but for yourself. Because this is only the beginning. The journey toward freedom, financial, emotional, and spiritual, starts right here with awareness. And as you move forward, remember, you were never behind. You were just believing the wrong story. Now, it's time to write a new one. So walk with me, one truth at a time, until that invisible wall becomes a doorway. And beyond it, a life you no longer have to chase because it's finally yours. Audiobook Gold, where consciousness meets wisdom. If this story resonated with your soul, stay with us, because the next one might just change the way you see everything.